Welcome to Mixed Education, where we discuss the beauty, differences, and effects of blending cultures. I'm your host, Angela Chagatti. On today's episode, I'm discussing the one and only Mariah Carey. Oh my gosh. Mariah Carey is a mother, vocal icon, songwriter, 5-time Grammy Award winning, 19 number one Billboard Hot 100 singles, a New York Times bestselling author, businesswoman, a mean girl movie expert, the queen of Christmas, musical legend, humanitarian, and a mixed race pioneer. On this episode, I'll be taking a look into some of Mariah Carey's personal and professional life as she navigated her mixed race heritage, being one of the first mixed race people in the public eye, facing the media and the world about her identity. In recent years, mixed race identity has become more in the norm, but still a complex topic. Mixed race identity sometimes carrying the burdens and the division of two or more cultures, rooted in a history of racism, discrimination, shame, bullying, abuse, isolation, and misunderstanding. Mariah Carey was born March 27, 1969, in New York to an Irish mother and an African-American Venezuelan father. In Mariah Carey's memoir, The Meaning of Mariah Carey, the chapter titled Coloring Outside of the Lines details her first moments of racism while she was just in preschool. This was the early 70s, roughly about 6 years after the Supreme Court case Loving versus Virginia, the case that made it illegal to block interracial marriages. Interracial relationships, let alone unions, were still a very new concept in America. Mariah and her classmates were assigned to make a portrait of their family. Using white construction paper and a limited crayon selection, young Mariah, with all her innocence, humanity, and a creative spirit, the elements that make children so pure, raised about her thought process of wanting to highlight her beautiful, diverse family beyond their skin color. Her intentions was to highlight their height, beauty, and curls. Due to lack of diverse color crayons, Mariah said she had to use a peach crayon to color her mother, sister, brother, and herself, and she had to use a brown crayon to draw her father. While Mariah Carey was working on her portrait, a teacher went over to inspect young Mariah's artwork. That teacher, along with 2 other adult teachers, laughed at Mariah's family portrait, specifically pointing at Mariah's drawing of her father, repeating, "You used the wrong crayon! You used the wrong crayon!" tormenting the 4-year-old Mariah to the point where tears rolled down her face and she had to stand up for herself against 3 morally wrecked, racist adults at the age of 4. Another incident happened a few years later. Mariah said she was in the 1st grade. Her parents lived in separate homes by this time. Mariah's mother was dropping her off at her father's home. Mariah was bringing along her best friend at the time, which she notates in the memoir looked like a strawberry shortcake girl. Mariah's best friend never saw her father before. So, when Mariah's father came outside to greet them, the strawberry shortcake friend began to cry out so uncontrollably. Mariah's mother had to put her back into the car and drive off. Mariah and her father stuck in the moment of disbelief, deep sadness, and hurt. Mariah said she never played with that girl again. Mariah also put in the book that in the 8th grade, she went to an all-white girl sleepover. During the sleepover, they lowered Mariah to a room and repeatedly called her the N-word with the hard ER at the end. She never told her mother about what happened, feeling that her white mother wouldn't understand the trauma and the pain of a bunch of white girls calling her the N-word. Years later, Mariah Carey became a global superstar, selling millions of records. She has an iconic 5-octave vocal range. She sang about love, God, humanity, heartbreak, and her story. And she also wrote most of her catalog. Because as you should know, Mariah Carey is a songwriter, darling. Her musical style has always been mostly R&B, soul, gospel, and pop produced, but she's never afraid to add hip-hop elements, and she still does that to this day. And she's also one of the very few artists that can remix a song and make it sound better than the original. But Mariah always kept her music soulful. Even as her fan base grew, selling buku albums and was collecting Billboard #1s like Pokemon, she never turned away from her soulful musical styles that are created by Black culture. She continued to work with hip-hop artists, producers, Black songwriters, and other R&B icons. I had to mention these things because although Mariah is part Black, her racial identity was still questioned. The judgment mostly based off her looks, her ivory skin color, head full of curls. Even though Mariah Carey spoke about her mixed race identity, people in the media would often reduce her as either a white girl that sang soul music or not Black enough to sing soul music. A New York Times article from February 1994, written by Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, titled Black or White? Labels Don't Always Fit. He goes on to write in the article, quote, part of Miss Carey's significance and undoubtedly the sharpest controversy around her has nothing to do with the singer's musical gifts. Instead, it derives from the confusion and discomfort that her multiracial identity provokes in American culture obsessed with race. Later in the article, he writes, quote, to make matters more complex, Miss Carey's vocal style is firmly rooted in Black culture. So if she's not clearly Black, yet she sings in Black styles, is she singing Black music? And what difference does it make? Without even trying, Miss Carey's music sparks reflection about how race continues to shape what we see and hear, end quote. No one could understand the way Mariah felt. Being mixed race was very unique during the 80s, 90s, and even the early 2000s. And as we know, in this country, when you're a minority group, your issues tend to be silenced. People often think that being mixed race, you have the best of both worlds. People can sometimes think because you have lighter skin or maybe brown skin and your hair texture is more curlier or wavier, that you're more desirable and that makes your life easier. In actuality, you stand out amongst everybody. That's like a leopard walking in front of a lion. Yes, the leopard is in the cat family, but it doesn't look like a lion. The leopard stands out as prey. Also, every mixed person doesn't come out looking like Mariah Carey, but that's an episode for another day. In my opinion, people have often silenced mixed race people due to thinking society treats you better or that you're more acceptable in most places. People may have a fascination with racially ambiguous looking people, but that doesn't stop people from making racist remarks, discrimination, projecting their hatred, and making fun of you because, in their mind, they think you hold a special privilege. In 1999, Mariah Carey went on the Oprah Winfrey Show. During the interview, Mariah brought out her mother, Patricia, to detail her experience marrying a Black man and raising biracial children. Patricia in the interview said when she told her mother she was going to marry a Black man, that her mother was so upset she had a priest call her. Patricia indicated in the interview that it was her mother's wish for her to never discuss about marrying a Black man. None of her family knew who her husband was. They didn't even know she was married, and of course she couldn't bring him around. Patricia explained that her and her husband did move around a lot to try to find neighborhoods where they could live peacefully. She said at one point they did move to a mixed neighborhood, but she said the Black children didn't like one of her children because they looked more whiter than the other, And then the white children didn't like the other child who looked a little darker. She said nobody really liked their family because they were a black and white couple. Another neighborhood that they moved to was a more wealthier neighborhood. Patricia expected that because this neighborhood was more wealthier, that people would accept her family more. It ended up being the worst neighborhood, she said. Someone ended up poisoning one of their dogs. Another time, someone even shot at their home, hitting a window that was near their dining table. Oprah in the same interview says to Mariah, "When I would see somebody like you, my initial impression would be, based upon your skin color or even hearing that you were biracial, is that you would have had this perfectly wonderful life, that everything would go well for you, that you would be pretty, that everybody would look at you and say, what a pretty person. I would have never imagined that you would have felt like an outcast." Mariah says back to her, "I don't know if I was an outcast, but I felt completely different. I felt like there was nobody that could fully understand my experience." She goes on to say more. "What I felt was that no friend, nobody I grew up with, nobody in school could even come close to relating to my experience because you feel different. I wrote a song about it on the Butterfly album called Outside, and it was about feeling ambiguous without a sense of belonging. For me, definitely growing up the way I did, I felt inside, and I never really expressed it to very many people, like I wasn't good enough. I didn't look like one particular group or another." Oprah then says to Mariah, "You're a role model. You do know that. For a lot of biracial children, girls especially." Mariah tells Oprah, "I feel like that's the most important. If I've done anything, forget breaking records, forget doing anything, because I didn't have a role model as an interracial person growing up. And when people send me letters like that say you made me feel like it's okay to be mixed, it's okay to be who I am, that is my one accomplishment if I think I've done anything." Speaking for myself personally now, if it wasn't for Mariah embracing her mixed race identity, being honest of the discrimination she faced from both sides, and how being mixed race affected her mental health, I wouldn't have had the language to embrace myself and prepare for the world's disarray about who I was. As a little girl, watching the fantasy music video, seeing a beautiful woman that looked similar to me, feeling this intuitive connection to her, and later someone revealed to me, "She's mixed just like you." Such a relief. And when facing my own struggles with my racial identity, I could go to Mariah's music and know that I'm not alone. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about this episode? And also, tell me, how do you feel about Mariah Carey's culture impact and her leading the way for us mixed race folks? You can go get her book, The Meaning. Oh my God, it's so good. Okay. You can go get her book, The Meaning of Mariah Carey, online, or check your local bookstore. You can also download the Audible version, which Mariah Carey narrates herself. Stream all her music. Lately I've been, revisiting Charm Bracelet and, of course, the Butterfly album, my personal favorite. So make sure y'all go check out Mariah's music, books, her merch. I'll leave some links below. Thank you for all that you do. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.